Atomfall is not Fallout, and you can be forgiven for mistaking that. All of its media leading up to release implied it would be. You have an alternate 1960s reality with obvious post-apocalyptic feel, where you're going around fighting bad guys and some mutants, completing quests and looting bodies, all to survive in this wasteland. But those similarities are superficial. After completing one pathway to the end of the game in 8 hours, I can say to you, it is a playable 1960s British horror film.
You require the operator.
Atomfall is not Fallout, and that's okay. In fact, it may be the best thing for it. Instead, it's a genre of game I would never have picked up to play if I had known that's what it is, as I have to watch modern horror movies on mute if I watch them at all. So anything where I'm being stalked through dark corridors by someone who wants to murder me and eat my brains is right out. But I enjoyed it anyway, and now I want to tell you to try it as well. I hate horror video games, but I have a real soft spot for British sci-fi and horror films from the 60s and 70s, the Doctor Who and Hammer stuff. Not because they're scary, but because they took risks and did something different, always trying to surprise the audience and present something we're familiar with in a new and weird, exciting way. A small group of people working on a tight budget to do something different. That's Atomfall to a T. And the team at Rebellion Games must have grown up watching those as well, because you have all of their tropes here. Lost in space-style robots that look like Dalek rejects from Doctor Who and sound just like them too. Crazy druidic cults with glowing eyes sacrificing people in their giant wicker men. How about bands of teenage ruffians roaming the countryside in over-elaborate costumes and then beating people to death with croquet bats, all while using Cockney slang like in A Clockwork Orange? And of course, the classic invasion of the body snatchers, where interplanetary beings take over humans and make them into a hive mind. It's all here. And even though it's not comedy, there's even a dead parrot sitting on a shopkeeper's counter, because this game is made by an English production company, and you can feel it in its DNA. And I wish I had known all this before I installed it, because it would have changed how I played the game. You wake up inside of a bunker, and you are told, hey, you need to escape the quarantine zone. I then expected a series of handheld fetch quests, level up my character through beating baddies and putting on new armor, and then becoming the head honcho of various factions before ruling this area. Nope, it actually meant what is said at the beginning. Your only objective is to escape the quarantine zone. How you do it takes you down one of multiple different endings, and there is no correct pathway to get there. Now, that's not to say there aren't side quests you'll encounter along the way, and different objectives for different characters, and a whole plethora of people you'll come across that might kill you as soon as you meet them, or that you can do the same thing to them too. But in Atomfall, killing people doesn't give you experience, and when you go to loot their bodies, most often all they have on them is a can of Spam and maybe a few bullets. Because this is a post-apocalyptic wasteland. You don't want their clothes, their armor isn't going to do crap to help you, so what's the point of it anyway? Atomfall in many ways cuts out the extra fluff that's been added onto RPG games in recent years. It reminds me most of Morrowind of all games, in that a lot of times your quest objective is, hey, over near this mountain is a person I need you to talk to. That's it. And besides a general layout of the area, they're not going to tell you where to go. You gotta just walk there and find out. Now, the map itself is not huge. If I had to guess, I'd say it's maybe 30 minutes to walk from one end to the other, which makes sense because there's no fast travel in the game. Because, again, it's a horror game at heart, and everything in game is meant to feel like it happens in a single day. If you fast travel, there's no sense of tension. Every time you walk on a road in this game, it's quite possible you're going to run into a band of overzealous soldiers or ruffian outlaws or crazed cultists, all of which who want you dead if you get too close. And death is very key to this game. A gun can kill you in one shot, because just like in real life, bullets hurt. And even if you smack someone in the head with a bat, guess what? They go down from that too. And it's that overriding sense of fragility and vulnerability that pushes for the tension of the game. I'm normally as stealthy in games as a hippopotamus in a whoopee cushion factory, but in this one, I had to stop, slow down, and let patrols go by me, shaking in my boots the entire time, afraid they would find me in the bushes. And that's why it's survival horror. You eat to heal yourself, but they're very generous with those resources, and even encounters of 2 or 3 people could be more than you can handle, and your best option is often to run away. The real enemy here is an overriding sense of dread for every single decision you are making. Every conversation you have with a character forces you to make choices when talking to them, and what you say could permanently lock you out of an ending without you ever even knowing it. Each person you're going to meet along the way will promise you to help you get out of the quarantine zone, and you have to unravel who's telling the truth, who's lying, and who might actually destroy the world if you help them. And the game isn't going to put up giant red flashing signs saying, hey, this is the evil one. So you might want to dig around if you care about the ethics of your decision. The creators of Atomfall made a beautiful world that is inherently broken, all couched in the idyllic countryside of Cumberland in northwestern England, which was home to a very real disaster that this game is based on that I had never heard of back in 1957. The Windscale nuclear plant caught on fire, and a radioactive fallout fell across the entire area and led to a full government quarantine. And clearly this is still burned into the minds of the locals who lived through it. The lack of information from the authorities, the fear of death from an unseen enemy, the concern of the very real long-term effects something like this could have that they were not even aware of, all while having to deal with a military presence that may not have your best interest at heart. All of which has been captured here, as you can see something constantly leaking out on the horizon. And it's weird to praise that in a video game, but since it's a rather short game, it feels more like a movie that you are joining into, and you can see all this wash over you. Now, there are no cutscenes in the game that's going to explain all this. Most of it is ambient storytelling. You'll walk around, pick up notes, and they will tell you a bit about the world, like the fact that in the 1600s, a giant supernova explosion was seen in the sky for 2 weeks, and people recorded it all throughout medieval Europe. A tiny, insignificant note found in a drawer in a back room, which it turns out is going to have a huge part to play later on in the game. And I apologize for not saying more here, but there's more than just a nuclear disaster going on, and this is a game that rewards your curiosity for exploration with more information to feed it. Now, I'm not going to pretend the game is perfect. By the time I got to the end, I realized I had been advancing 4 different ways of leaving the quarantine zone. If I had just concentrated on one of them, I could have finished the game a heck of a lot faster. But it was somewhat shocking when the realization hit me that the full intent of the game really is just to escape. And it's a liberating simplicity in a way, with games that are so often designed now to last theoretical 100 hours of gameplay. You can also argue that combat in this game is completely superfluous. If you are good at running, dodging, and hiding, you could double as a protagonist in a Terry Pratchett book and also net yourself a unique pacifist achievement where you can finish the entire game without killing anyone. And because there is no leveling up from killing people, there's not a lot of reason to do it. There is a level up system in the game, but it's ancillary to your experience. Most of the abilities are like run longer, which I highly recommend, and upgrade your guns so that they suck slightly less. No particularly game-breaking spells where you're punching through walls or something like that. Because this isn't Fallout. And the moment you wrap your head around that, when you boot up Atomfall, it liberates the experience to be something different. A gorgeous Firewatch-esque game where you navigate across luscious countryside that is bathed in a sense of dread, and then occasionally throw a mace in someone's face and run away as fast as you can. Where the deeper you delve and the more you read, the more you can get back out of it again. There's keys hidden behind doors that unlock chests, that unlock a note that tell you to go check in a shed on the other side of the map. Because life isn't pretty or simple, and there are no check marks along the way. And this one forces you to actually take notes at a couple points, because you never know what important thing you might discover along the way, or the many different ways you can accomplish the same task, which is about as old school RPG as it gets. So if you are a fan of that genre, check out Atomfall. It's something very different, yet very familiar at the same time. A real love letter to a forgotten style of movies that I watch every Saturday night on Svengoolie. But what do you think? Do you want a little more Doctor Who in your Fallout? Well, if so, try Atomfall. And make sure to tell me below what you thought of the game.
Do you require the operator?